God bless you, everyone. Welcome to the Empowered to Win. Tonight is Wednesday night breakthrough. We're going to be doing things a little different. We're going to be talking on the subject overcoming limitations. I'm going to come and share with you 4 steps that my wife and I used to overcome some obstacles that we was facing. Praying that you can grab from some of the notes and some of the testimonies that I'm going to be sharing with you tonight that will be able to help you. It is very important to understand that when you get to the place of overcoming limitations, you got to have a plan. Whether it's like us coming from one place going to another, or maybe you're looking for another job, or maybe you're looking to start a business, or maybe you're looking to come out from some government assistance, or maybe you're looking to go to a new job. Whatever it may be, it starts with a victory plan, a plan that's workable, a plan that comes with a short-term a workable plan that will help you get some results. So tonight, we're going to be sharing some of those steps that helped us, praying that you can grab hold of some of these steps and they help you too. Let's get ready for the word. You are empowered to win. God bless. I wanted to share and some things with you from some experiences that I have learned on the subject of overcoming limitations. Tell somebody we finna be empowered. We finna be empowered to go, which means grow, to know, which means that to change our mindset towards some things that can help better and position us and our families, here it is, to be to walk in a type of freedom that Jesus declares that we should walk in. And so what many people don't know is many years ago, my wife and I and our small son at the time, we hit hard times. And when we hit hard times, we had to depend on a system to help us to stay afloat and to maintain. And so I wanted to come talk to you a little bit about being limited and the danger of staying in a comfortable place of limitations, and then talk about the leap of faith to leaping from fear to faith. Leaping from fear to faith. And so I wanted to talk to you about the years, some years ago that we was on Section 8. Section 8. And this here is just to give some information and to give some revelation to those of you who may be in that same season that we was once in. And so I started beginning to think about how can I come and talk about some of the things God has given us revelation on, and God has brought us from, and God has allowed us to expand beyond that boundary of limitation. And so a few years, maybe 15 years ago, my wife and I, young, married, probably had been married maybe a few years, and found ourselves in a situation financially where we couldn't take care of all the bills, and the job that I had wasn't enough. And so we had to apply for Section 8. And many of you know what Section 8 is, and some may not, but that is a government assistance program that helps people in need to pay their rent, to pay a portion of their rent. Some pay all of their rent. Also to help you with light bill assistance and things of that nature. And so I felt that it would be empowering for me to come and talk about some of the steps that we took once we got to a place to be able to say, this assistance, we don't need it anymore. We thank God for it and for the season that we was in. But then it became a period of a time to where it became bondage for us. It became aggravating to us. And so me and my wife sat down and we began to start talking about, okay, how can we function and make it without being confined to this system? And so one thing that we started thinking about, and you can take notes if you can, one thing that we started talking about was, okay, how can we increase our income to be able to get away or to step away from this system? All right. And I'm gonna tell you here in a minute why I say outgrowing limitations. The government assistance is there to help you and help those that are in need. I think a lot of times it become an issue for people who get comfortable with that assistance and not have a plan to get off of the assistance, but to stay in that place of limitations. And I call it limitations because on that program, they come so many times during the year to check the place that you stay in, to make sure that you are keeping it up, to make sure that your lights are on, to make sure that you are doing according to their standards and according to their rules and regulations that they have. And so here is the thing about it with us. After it did the job that we needed it to do, which helped us during a season where we needed help, where we needed that financial assistance paying rent, where we needed that financial assistance with light bill or water bill. For that season that we needed it, it did the job. But after a while, we started getting frustrated because every so many months or every year you have to go in and you gotta sign up again. And then you got to continue, like I said, every so many months they will have someone to come in and check the appointment. And the job that I was working was a little barely a little minimum wage job that wasn't getting it. And so anytime I got a raise, they would take away money. And so after a while, it started getting frustrating for us. We had to be home at this certain time. Somebody come in and look at the appointment. Or we had to drive so many miles to go in and get recertified again to stay on the government assistance. And that's one thing that we wanted to make sure that we didn't get comfortable, because it's easy to get comfortable, in that type of situation where you're getting help. And if you don't utilize the help and you just become comfortable with just something just being taken care of, you ain't got to worry about it, you could get in a place called stuck. And so that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure that we did not want to do. And so me and my wife, we sat down and we began to start thinking about how can we overcome this system, getting out of this system. How can we become independent to where we don't need this government assistance? And so here's a few things that I did write down. Number one, we sat down and we started talking about how can we increase our income? How can we increase our income? These are the things that we got to talk about in the body of Christ. We can't just give prophetic words that God is going to give you $100,000. God is going to bring you out of debt. You're going to be a millionaire. Or I pray that God gives you the house of your dreams or the car of your dreams, but you own government assistance. Or you don't know how to budget money. You don't know how to save money. You don't know how to handle money. And so we have to make sure, and I definitely want to make sure that I share the insight and the revelation that God gave us. There are tools and there are things that you have to do to overcome some limitations that show up in our lives. For a season, it was help. After that season, it became bondage for us. I'm going to say it again. For the season that we needed, it was help. After that season, it became bondage. It became aggravating. Yes, we enjoyed being able to go, because while we was getting Section 8, we was also getting food stamps. So that was another one. That kind of goes up and down, depend on how much money you make or the raise that you get. So we had to deal with that, going back and forth with that. And I told my wife, I said, listen, I said, yes, I said I enjoyed being able to walk in the grocery store and to be able to just grab things and not look at a price. Just get what we want. But when the system has done its job and you have outgrown it, tell somebody it's time to become independent. That means that you have to restructure yourself now from what you used to do to what you need to now start doing. And so these were some of the things that we had to start doing. We had to look at ways of increasing our income, which some of the things that we named was going back to school to get a degree. Number 1, a trade, going back to school to get a trade. Number 3, applying for a better paying job. All of these things that I just named, we did. My wife went back to school and she went back to get a degree in a business. She went and got a business degree in business administration. And so I went to trade school. I went to trade school and became a certified truck driver, driving big rigs. All right. And then when we made those steps, then we start applying for better paying jobs that will position us to walk away, here it is, from what was a help in one season. Now in this season, it became aggravating to the season of saying thank you for the assistance. Thank you for the help. But now we don't need the assistance because we understand and realize now there were some things that we had to do. So number 1, what we did was we sat down, we wrote out a plan. How could we increase our income? Going back to school, we did. Getting a trade, we did. Applying for a new job, paying more money, we did. Then with that, once we got to that place, we had to learn how to start budgeting our money. Because now we couldn't spend like we used to spend when we was getting food stamps. We could just go in, and me and my wife, we laughed and joked about it. How now when we went in a shop, we just had to look at things and kept walking on by. Because now we on a budget. And so certain things we could not buy. So we can continue to maintain, here it is, not being structured in a being limited within a structure that kept us confined. All right. So therefore, we had to learn how to start budgeting the money that we had started getting. Our plan was not to go back on the government assistance. Our plan was to be able to come from what was help to now it was being so aggravating to us. And then we realized it was bondage because every time an increase came in, they decreased. Every time an increase came in, rent decreased, the money that came in. So I start paying more on rent. Every time I got an increase on the job that I had, food stamps, the number of how much we was getting decreased. And so we start looking at it. Well, if they're going to decrease every time we're trying to increase, then we might as well learn how to be able, here it is, to be self-sufficient and handle and manage what we have. So we ain't got to deal with the aggravation of someone to come into our house every so many times out of the year, just to inspect our homes. Going into if we got an increased annual job, going into Section 8 or going into the food stamp office, and they readjusting. And so it was times to where they readjusted so much that it was better that we didn't get food stamps. It was better that we didn't get assistance on light bill. And so that's when we start knowing it's time, here it is, that we have outgrown this season of help. And that's what we got to get to, is understanding when we have outgrown that season of help, whatever that may be. And this is how you know you have outgrown, because now everything frustrates you. Everything that used to benefit you, everything that used to help you, everything that used to, that you needed, now is frustrating you. Catch that now. So that's how you know you have now got to the place of where you have outgrown what used to be help. Now it becomes a limitation. It becomes a barrier. Now we start looking at, well, if we want better, we got to be able to handle ourselves financially, better. So yes, we started budgeting, but that meant number two. So number one was we had to increase our income. Wife went to school, up to trade school. We started applying for a better job. All right. Number two, we had to change our old mindset. Here is a note. Sometimes staying comfortable means staying confined to limitations. Now, that was a point where we was comfortable, where you could go in the grocery store and you could spend $300, $400 and just, it was good. But then once you got to the place to where you had to start buying, and it came from your own resources, your own pocket, you had to go in and change your mindset. I wasn't picking up shrimp like I was picking up shrimp before. I wasn't picking up that expensive, that big old bag of fish like I was. We had to now start shopping on a budget. And so we had to start changing our mindset. And it's easy to get comfortable, to stay in a confined place when you are comfortable, because there is no need at that time that you feel within your mind that things need to change. But over a period of time, we started growing our family. Over a period of time, we started having other desires, and we started having other thoughts and things that we wanted to do. And so we was confined only to a 2-bedroom apartment, and our family had went from 3 to 4. Now we have a daughter on the scene, and we start looking at, we wanted to have a home. And so we had to change our mindset. We had to start budgeting. We had to start putting things together. We got a list to start writing down. These were the bills that we had. The top of the list, tithe. 10% come off. Okay, we got to give that. That's the Lord's. That's his. After that, we start looking at, okay, we got light bill. We got rent. All right, we got gas. We got food. We start budgeting what the money could do, what we could spend and what we could not spend, what we needed and what was just a want. And so our needs trumped our wants. So we would go in and get what we needed so we could continue to survive, to go on for the next week leading up to the next payday, to continue that cycle. So you have to have a change of mindset. You can't stay comfortable, especially in a place when you have outgrown something and you are ready to now move up. Come on now, you're ready to move up and to expand and to grow. We grew our family. We expanded our family. And we began to want a home instead of apartment. We stayed in an apartment almost 10 years before we was able to move into our own home. But it came with doing the work. It came with doing these steps where we begin to start looking at how can we increase our income. Okay, going to school, that's a possibility. Let's do it. Getting a trade, that's a possibility. Let's do it. Applying for a better job, that's a possibility. Let's do it. Then while we're doing that, changing our old mindset, realizing that we was comfortable in that season, but now that season of help is over. And so now we don't want to be confined in this way. We don't want to be confined with how much money we make versus how much money they're going to give for rent or how much money they'll give for food. We want it to be free from that system of going up and down, up and down, up and down. But there was never a door that opened up for us through this system to say, get out. The program was to help us where we was at. But in order for us to go from where we was at to greater, we had to come up with that plan. We had to pray about it. And we came up with we see the vision and we had to write it down. And we started working that vision. Here is that, and then number 3 ties in to what I have already mentioned. Learning how to budget your money. It is not a sin, ladies and gentlemen, to budget your money. Amen. That there is a saying that I tell my son, listen, money will talk to you. So what you mean, Daddy? All right, when you get paid and you have your bills, your money gonna let you know what you can pay now and what needs to wait later, what you can do now and what you need to do later. And I said, so therefore you need to learn how to budget. People of God, it is very important that the Bible talks about, even Jesus saying that we need to be good stewards over what is in our possession, what is in our hand. And that's a lot of times looked over because we will sow for the blessing. We will worship for the blessing. We will cry out for a blessing. But then we won't know how to make it last once we get it. All right. And so this is the thing that I want to empower you. There is nothing wrong with budgeting your money. We have to learn how to be patient and stop thinking because we got to see me. Once we get to a certain place saving the money, I don't want to touch it. My wife looks at me and we laugh about it. I'll be looking sour touching money because I know the work that we have put in to get it to that amount. And I hate to see it decrease. When you have come from struggle and you have changed your mindset and you realize, listen, I made a vow to my wife, we'll never go through some of the things that we went through in our earlier years. Some of it was because I made foolish decisions. I quit a job without having another job already waiting for me to show up. So I learned from that. I had vehicles repossessed. I had to learn from that. I had to learn how to be a good steward. At the same time, trucking the church. At the same time, under great anointed leaders and preachers and teachers and being a musician in the church and singing and playing, but still was struggling financially because I didn't know how to budget. I wasn't a good steward of that. So I had to learn, me and my wife, we had to learn, number 3, how to budget. And that means that you have to make sure, amen, that the budget is what this is the amount that you're going to have for the month. This is the amount that you're going to save. This is the amount that's going to come in and take care of your bills and all of that. And this, going to be money that you may want to put aside for a little something here and there. But you want to be able to budget your money because you got to keep living. All right. And so number 3, learning how to budget. And here it is. I'm going to talk about number 4, the last one, number 4. All right. How we outgrew limitations. And that's what I call Section 8 and food stamps for us. Now, that may not be for you that may be on it because it took a little while for us to get to that place, for us to be frustrated on that system, to realize that we wasn't going to attain the home that we wanted. We wasn't going to attain the things that we desired because they made sure that if increase came in, they decreased. So it was designed to pretty much keep you still or get to the point of being tired and just, here it is, take the leap of faith and work the plan. Ask God to give you a workable plan of getting off of the system. Now, if you can't get off the system right now, you need the government assistance, you stay there because we stayed there till it was our season of help. But when we outgrew it and it became frustrating to us, that's how we knew then, okay, these resources here, we have outgrown. We have outgrown them and we're going to move on. In order for us to have what we desired, we realized that we had to break away from this system. And so God had to restructure our mind. God had to restructure us and we had to do the work. We had to do steps. God just did not pull us out of it, but we had to do the steps and we had to make decisions. And it was very uncomfortable. It was many times I thought and I said, man, I wish we still was getting food stamps. It was many times I thought, man, I wish we were still getting light bill assistance. That was just a part of me still being winged off of that help, being used to being helped. But when God is ready to grow us, when God is ready to expand us, he will dry up the thing that kept us comfortable. He will dry up the thing that once was a help. Now it becomes a place and a season of frustration for us. And so we had to learn how to budget. All right, here's the 4th one here. Overcoming fear to gain freedom. What do I mean by that? The fear that will come over you is mind-blowing. Once we sat down and we made the decision that this was what we was going to do, first thing my wife said, well, how are we going to make it? And when we was getting help with half of the rent, when we was getting help with the food, now we got to make the money that we have work in the place of those resources. And I said, yeah. I said, we're going to have to trust God. And there was several times where we just looked and was like, man, this show would be good, man, if we were still on this or we were still on that. But here it was, there was no going back because we had outgrown it. And what was a help for that season had been cut off. And for me, it was like God says, I'm moving you. All right. You've been comfortable here for a minute, but I want to expand you. I want to grow you. All right. So we had to overcome fear to gain freedom. What type of freedom are you talking about? All right. The freedom of not having someone to come in every few months to check in to see how our place look. The freedom of not having to go into office to say, okay, well, we're changing the decrease in your amount in the rent or food stamps because we've seen that you got, here it is, you got a 10-cent raise or a 20-cent raise. All right. The freedom of being a part of a system that no longer benefits you. The freedom now to expand when you learn how, here it is, to budget your money. When you learn that you can, here it is, go back to school. You can get a trade. You can apply for a better paying job and get those jobs. And you can change your mindset and learn how to budget. So what freedom I'm talking about? The freedom to be able to say, which we did. After 10 years of staying in a small little apartment, we was able to go get our home with no government assistance. Because we went to school, we went and got the trades, we went and got better jobs. We changed our mindset of being so dependent on a system when God was saying that system was just for a help. But I need you to depend on me. I need you to trust me. I need to wing you off of this. Now listen, God winging you off of the system that you're used to, helping you, it doesn't feel good. And at times it doesn't look good. It was days that we came home with a trunk load of food on food stamps. When we start budgeting, we came home with a few bags in the trunk. We had to start budgeting and managing, and then that began to start teaching us how to save. And that began to start teaching us how to start preparing, because we start looking at, okay, this apartment is too small. So therefore now we want to start looking for a home. And in order for us to get to that greater place, we worked out. Now this is just the things that we worked out. Now you can go back and take the notes and use some of the things that I said, or you can also pray and ask God to give you a plan. And that's what I did. Me and my wife, we began to pray for a victory plan. God to help us, since we have now outgrown this system, and now we don't want to be confined to these limitations, then we have to now start preparing. Here it is, preparing for what is to come that is greater than where we were. And so that's what we did. So number 4, overcoming fear to gain freedom. Here it is, catch this. Letting go of dependency, what you've been depending on in that season that's been a help, that's been helping sustain you, help take care of you. Letting go of dependency and grabbing hold of faith, work, and determination. Tell somebody, letting go of dependency, grabbing hold of faith, a working plan, and determination. You're going to trust God when you get to that season where you have outgrown maybe that job that you're at, maybe that house that you're staying in, maybe that car that you're driving. You have expanded your family. You need more room for a car, more room for a home. Maybe, God has, expanded you. You went back to school. And now that job that once was a help for you now doesn't benefit you going forward, because now the house that you want is bigger. So it requires more money. The car that you want is larger. It requires more money. So we're going to, here it is, when we work the steps of a working plan, like I did. Step 1, increasing our income, going back to school, getting a trade, then applying for a better job. Number 2, changing your mindset. It's all right to be uncomfortable, for in the long run for you to get what you desire, what you've been praying for, what you've been asking God for. Number 3, learning how to budget. So when you get to those greater places, you'll be able to stay. You ain't got to worry about repossession of a car, repossession of a home, repossession of furniture. And I pray, amen, that we get to the place of budgeting where we can just start paying, where we ain't got to go and get all these high interest rates for furniture, different things. But that's a different message that I'm going to come talk about. But we want to make sure that we position ourselves, here it is, for greater. Instead of just preaching greater, We want to make sure that we have some knowledge, that we have an understanding how, here it is, to go from what was beneficial to you in this season to now it is frustrating to you in this season because you have outgrown it. And God says, all right, now it's time to expand you outside of these boundaries, outside of these limitations. Now it's time for you now to go and trust me. But there is work that you have to do. So therefore, number 4, and I'm getting ready to let you go. Number 4, overcoming fear to gain freedom. That's where me and my wife mindset was. We had a vision of having bigger and better. And I can't say that the Lord just dropped that in our lap. What the Lord did allow us to have and to see was a vision of having it. But what is it to have the vision but not have the mindset, or here it is, or the work ethic to do what's necessary to attain the vision? So we must understand that a lot of times from the places of the pulpit that we will hear people say, listen, you're going to be a millionaire. I see God expanding your home. I see that you're finna get this. It's a lot of materialistic stuff. But here it is, do they have? You got to make sure from here that people have, here it is, understanding that will bring forth revelation, that will bring forth manifestation, that will cause for transfiguration within their whole, here it is, within their whole self, spiritually and naturally. So this is what me and my wife, these are the things that we did. When we outgrew Section 8, how did we know that we had outgrown it? Because everything about it became frustrating. We got tired of going down to the office to sign this and to sign that. We got tired of getting letters in the mail saying, well, you got an increase on your job, so now we're going to decrease that. We got tired of food stamps going up and down, up and down, up and down. In one season, that didn't bother us at all. But over a period of time, we start looking at, okay, the help has been a blessing. The help has been good. Now, here's the question. What do you do when the help now becomes a burden? That's something to think about. What do you do when what was a help to you in one season now is confining and limiting you in another season? What do you do? It's time to make a plan for you to leave outside of those boundaries and those limitations and say, I realize I have outgrown. Or what people say when you stay at somebody's house too long, I have outstayed my welcome. Me and my wife had outgrown Section 8, food stamps. And here is the blessing that we trusted God so much that he kept increasing us once we took that leap of faith, that we never had to go back to get on Section 8. We never had to go back and get on food stamps. That's probably been almost over 15 years now. So when it's time, you'll know when it's time. When it's time, God will put it in your heart, it's time for you to make a move. Some of us have been sitting in places that we have outgrown. Some of you in jobs right now that you're frustrated with, that you have outgrown, but fear has attached itself to you to make you be afraid of leaving because you're saying, I don't know if I'm going to get better, so I'd rather stay where I'm comfortable. I learned I'd rather be uncomfortable to get the promises and the blessings of God and to grow, to know, and to have better. I'd rather be uncomfortable than stay at a place that God has been told me to leave, but I'm staying because it's what's familiar. Staying in what's familiar can be very damaging. You got a future that's waiting on your arrival. And I pray that I said something to bless you. Come on now, we are outgrowing the limitations that's keeping us from growing and getting to bigger and better. When it's time, you will know it. When it's not time, you will know it. So don't move without it being time. Moving prematurely could mean some type of death. And what I mean by that is meaning that if you need the assistance, use it. Don't put yourself and your family in a position to where now you don't have the help, you don't have food, you don't have lights, you don't have water. When it's time, you'll know it. I pray that I said something to bless you. God bless.